Yo guys, welcome to this new episode for Sketchcast. In today's episode, we're going to explore my favorite plugins of 2018 so far. So without further ado, let's get started. So as you can see here, I have a blank canvas in Sketch and we're going to explore three plugins. We're going to explore a timeline plugin, we're also going to explore Sketch Cleaner, and then we're going to explore the Symbols Manager. Now we're going to start with the timeline plugin. And in order to do that, we're going to start with an artboard, and let's select any artboard. This is pretty big, but we're going to do it of 400 by 400. And let's zoom in real quick here. And then we're going to rename it first. And what this plugin does is basically adding the capabilities from Principle right inside of Sketch. Now, it's not that capable and it's not that good yet, but this is beta. So it's a really cool plugin. So it's really promising what it can do. And I'm going to show it to you guys in a second. So we're going to do an animation that it's going to transform a rectangle into an oval. And then we're going to go back to the rectangle again, right? And we're going to be able to do that by tapping on the actual shape. So let's get started here with a rectangle with a little bit of a border radius. Let's add 40 or so. And then we're going to add a nice color. This one works. Cool. And actually, let's remove the border radius to 10 or so. Awesome. And now what we're going to do is with the plugin down here in this bar, we're going to select this icon, which means adding a button. Now we're going to select the layer. And then as you can see, Sketch adds, or the plugin adds, a little icon down here that I can select and I can drag to any artboard. Now this works the same as Principle. So I can copy and paste the first artboard, call it second. And because the layer is the same name, I can add a little bit of a rotation. Cool. And now I can select this layer, the rectangle layer, and go to the second artboard. Now, once I release, you can see that the action can be a tap or can be anything. And then the animation can be a slide left, slide right, etc., etc. But for now, we're going to keep it in the timeline, which means that we're not going to move the artboard or we're not going to overlay the second artboard into the first one. What we're going to do is just animate from the first to the second. Now let's hit connect here. And as you can see, I have the animation here. And when I tap edit timeline, you can see that I have all the possibilities that I have from Principle. Now let's make this a little bit slower, like so. And now let's play the animation. That's really cool, right? Now we can tap here to go back, and maybe we want to do something like that. Let's see. Cool. And then we can go back like that. And now if we want to go back to the initial state, we can select this point, go back, reverse the incoming transition. Let's hit connect. And once we tap play, there we go. Now, we might want to give some sort of spring animation here. So we can double tap, and then we're going to have a bunch of possibilities. So let's remove, or let's add a little bit more of a stiffness, a little bit less damping. Hit OK. And you can see that there's not too much of a change, but we can play with those values and then see how it goes. Cool. And now if we hit save and close, you can see that we can leave to Sketch again. And we have the two artboards. We don't have anything or any weird layer or symbol or arrow here indicating that we're going from the first to the second, as you have everything in the plugin or everything in this bar over here. And now if you select the layer, you can see that it does something. It brings you to somewhere, but you don't see it anywhere else in Sketch. All right, so let's remove that. And the second plugin that I want to show you guys is something called Symbols Manager. Now, if you've worked in some kind of big file in Sketch, you know that when you have something like that, and you have a bunch of colors, right? And you want to add them as a symbol. So, you collect them and then you select some sort of color palette like we did a couple of weeks ago. So let's add maybe this purple, and then we're going to add blue. Maybe not this blue, but you get the idea, right? So you create this sort of palette, neutral tones and stuff like that. And then you start renaming the layers. And then you create symbols, right? So you select, create symbols, and then you have a big file and you have a bunch of symbols. Those get removed, and then you have a huge list of symbols here that you don't quite understand, or you don't quite remember why you had them, or you're not using them, etc., etc. Now you can go to the symbols page, but the symbols page, even though it's getting better now with horizontal alignment, you sometimes get huge lines of stuff. So let's, for instance, say that, maybe in page 1, I have those two. Let's fix this shadow real quick. Maybe adding -10 and -20 or 40 or something like that. Cool. And let's say that I have those two cameras, and those two cameras have a bunch of symbols. So when I go to symbols, I have those, all those symbols that maybe I don't understand, or maybe I don't remember, or maybe I don't use anymore, right? So maybe I don't want this. And then instead, what I do is centering that, and then I'm not using that icon, right? So how do I know that I'm not using, or how do I organize those symbols? Well, there's a plugin called Symbols Manager that I can just open. And then once I open them, we're going to be able to see if I use the icon. We're going to be able to see their folders. So for instance, this is in the folders icon. So once I go to symbols, I'm going to be able to go to icons, and then inside icons, I'm going to have all those icons. I'm going to be able to see if I use the icons or not. And what I can also do is, if I don't use those symbols, I can just delete them, hit OK, delete them, OK, save. I deleted 6 symbols, and when I go back to the symbols, I'm just going to have the relevant symbols, or the ones that I actually use. I don't use any colors, I don't use anything. The only thing that I use are those icons right here. Cool. All right, so the last plugin that I want to talk to you guys about is, let's first do a little bit of prep work like that. Let's enter this. And when you're working on a messy file, you get stuff like unused groups, unused text layer styles. You get maybe you have a divider. Let's do a divider here, right? And which is called rectangle, and that's not giving you anything pretty much. So you get a lot of those things when you are in your creative process just working, right? But once you have to hand off the file, you're always like, sorry, my file is messy and stuff like that. But there's a way to clean the sketch file a little bit with Sketch Cleaner. Now, if we go to Sketch Cleaner, you can see that there's a lot of sorting mechanisms. There's renaming, like renaming the divider like layers. So if it's a long layer that has that it's not too tall, it's going to rename it to divider. You can change the border position, remove the unused layer styles, etc., etc. Now, an overview is if you can select the two artboards, go to Sketch Cleaner, and then select the Sketch Cleaner options. You can rename divider like layers. You can remove unused styles, and let's also delete the hidden layers, right? So when you hit OK, you can see that my layer got renamed to divider. And you can also see that if I open the tools, I don't have the hidden layer anymore. So that's an easier way to hand off files and just do a couple of simple quick fixes for your developers or your peers, designers, project managers, etc. to not have a huge file that you are not really using. So I hope you guys learned a ton today with this episode. I hope you enjoyed a couple of tricks here and there with the plugins. And if you did, let me know in Spectrum or on Twitter, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one.